We all need more fiber in our diet. Today I have a great recipe that will give you just that. Today we're making high fiber mashed potatoes. This delicious recipe gives you 9 grams of fiber in just one serving. High fiber mashed potatoes consist of primarily 2 simple ingredients. Potatoes, just not all 10 pounds of them, and beans. So let's get started. The first thing we want to do is get our water boiling. Water is going to take about 9 minutes to get boiling, so we're going to get started with that first. Now, sometimes you ask yourself, well, how much water do I put in this? How am I going to know if I have enough? What I like to do is put my potatoes in there first. Fill it up. And then we'll take the potatoes out. This will give us some idea as to how much water we'll need to keep our potatoes totally submerged in water. That works for me. All right, so now what we'll do is we'll put the potatoes in this sink. And get our water on the stove. First thing we're going to do is give our potatoes a wash. They've been in the dirt all their life, so we don't need to be eating any of that dirt. And you can see by the water, sometimes it's a pretty good idea. All right, let's go ahead and get these cut up. So what we're going to do is we'll take them all out. After we cut them, we'll put them back in. When it comes to cutting, the smaller you cut them, the quicker they boil. While I'm busy cutting potatoes in the kitchen, let's talk a little bit more about fiber. What is it? Why does it matter? First of all, there's 2 kinds of fiber. There's soluble and insoluble fiber. Soluble fiber is the kind of fiber that dissolves in water. This kind of fiber can help lower cholesterol, can help lower your blood sugar levels, and this kind of fiber is found in foods such as oats, beans, peas, apples, citrus fruits, carrots, and psyllium husk. So those are sources you can find soluble fiber, or at least some of them. Next we have insoluble fiber. Insoluble fiber is a fiber that does not dissolve in water. It never will dissolve in water. And this kind of fiber is a great kind of fiber because it helps to clean out our intestinal tract and keeps our digestive tract moving smoothly. So there's nothing like being able to keep the pipes clean so they don't get clogged. No pun intended. Speaking of, this also helps with constipation. So if you ever find yourself having trouble using the bathroom, add more fiber to your diet, and that will help to loosen your stool so that we don't have this problem anymore. Now, insoluble fiber can be found in foods such as whole wheat, wheat bran, beans, of course, vegetables, nuts, and even potatoes. So those are other great sources of insoluble fiber. Now that we have some idea about fiber, let's get back into the kitchen. Last one. And good, because our water is just about boiled. There you go. Let's go and get these in the water. And as you can see, works out perfectly. Just the right amount of water without too much left over. All right, we'll go ahead and keep an eye on these and check them occasionally. And they should be ready for us in about 10 minutes. While our potatoes are boiling, let's talk a little bit more about the benefits of fiber. Fiber does a lot of great things for our body in addition to helping cholesterol, helping blood sugar, helping our stool. It does a lot more than that. It does help to maintain some sort of regular bowel movement. So, no offense, if that's something you don't do on a daily basis, this could help you get more regular, no pun intended. Now, it also helps to, when we talked about cholesterol, it helps to lower your LDL, your bad cholesterol. The LDL is your low density lipoproteins. This is the stuff that causes heart attacks and, all that kind of, all those kind of problems. And by lowering that, it's going to clean up our bloodstream as well. It also helps, when we talk about reducing blood sugar levels earlier, this also helps to reduce your blood sugar and the risk of type 2 diabetes. So adding a high fiber diet into our life definitely helps with that. Not to mention, helps to lower the risk of heart disease. Let's face it, we can have a lot of problems in our life, but a dead heart is not going to do any of us any good. So adding a high fiber diet can definitely help with that. Now, something you may not know, and that is a high fiber diet also helps to reduce the risk of breast cancer, ladies. That's right. I referenced all my sources in the description section of this episode, so you're welcome to look all this up to assure yourself I know what I'm talking about. But yes, breast cancer. Now, there was a study out, and it confirmed that when adding a high fiber diet to young girls' diet in their adolescence, their teens, early adulthood, adding a high fiber diet to the acne era of your life could definitely help reduce the risk of breast cancer. And with all that's been going on with breast cancer research and the publicity it's been getting, that's definitely one cancer no girl wants. So that's another great reason to adding a high fiber diet into your life. Now, there's also a Harvard study done by 40,000 male health professionals. And within this study, they were all given a high fiber diet. Harvard had concluded at the end of their study that a high fiber diet had resulted in a 40% reduction of coronary heart disease. Again, another great reason to keep our hearts alive and pumping. I know I can't live without mine. I'm certain you feel the same way about yours. But a high fiber, nothing more than just adding high fiber to your diet, can really help to lower that. Harvard also did a similar study with 40,000 female nurses. They found similar results even on the female side of this high fiber diet study they did. So that's a nice thing to know. Now, something that does affect all of us once we turn age 40 and over is diverticular disease. I know that's a hard one to say. Diverticular disease, or diverticulitis, is something that approximately 40% of us over age 40 are going to become subject to. What is that? That is the swelling of the intestines. Now, unfortunately, as our intestines swell, then we also become subject to another issue, or another disease called autointoxication. Ooh, even worse. Because, going back to our illustration on the intestinal tract, we understand there's a lot of curves and bends and all that to it. Well, our food has to make it all through all those turns in order before we can eliminate it. And as your intestines swell, those turns become not so easy to corner. And then what happens then is the high processed diet that too many of us are subject to gets lodged in the corners. It gets stuck there. And it doesn't quite make it out the backside like it's supposed to. Now, that's where the problems begin. Because food tastes great, it smells great, we love to eat it, no questions asked. We all know what it smells like the next day or 2 days later when it comes out the backside. Nothing like the way it came in. Now just imagine that smell sitting inside your stomach, not going anywhere for long periods of time. Well, that food, once you've digested it or partially digested it, will continue to rot inside your intestines. Sorry, sad but true. And that's where dis-ease comes from. Because as this rotting food sits in your gut and it doesn't get eliminated, it creates all kinds of dis-ease kinds of problems. That's something, again, we can avoid. We all remember John Wayne, the actor, the cowboy. He always had the tiny waist and the big gut. How was that? How exactly was that? My dad had a similar condition because I remember growing up as a kid, I'm like, Dad, you're fat. He's like, no, look, push on my stomach. And I can only push in maybe this much and then it got hard. My dad convinced me that muscle grew on top of fat. We didn't know anything better back then. There was no internet. Needless to say, my dad had the same problem. Now, going back to John Wayne for a second here, this diverticulitis or an auto-intoxication, the problem with that is that when he finally did pass away and they went ahead and did his autopsy, they removed 40 pounds of stuff from inside his intestines. 40 pounds of stuff that should have never been there because he already ate it. It should have went through the channels and left the building, but it never left. So that gives you some sort of visual as to what this kind of disease looks like. And again, we see this with a lot of people. They're just big, round people, but maybe it's because their intestines are big on the inside. So going back to fiber, adding a high fiber diet to our life can help reduce, maybe even eliminate that. Now, not to mention, of course, the most immediate benefit to a high fiber diet we have is it helps us stay full longer. So we've all eaten pretzels. We know that we could sit there and take the pretzel and just let it dissolve in our mouth. There goes the salt, and then of course it slowly dissolves. If our mouth can dissolve pretzels, we know our stomach can. Well, how long does it take our stomach to dissolve pretzels? Well, think about the diet most of us eat. Pastas, breads, simple things like that. Well, if they're simple, what they're called simple carbohydrates, they're simple to digest, and then once they digest, they move along the intestinal tract. Once they leave the stomach, we're feeling hungry, and our stomach feels empty, and we tend to be inclined to eat. However, if we're always feeling full and satisfied, we're less likely to keep adding more food to the stomach because we still have what we feel like as a full stomach. And high fiber, because it takes longer to digest, helps us stay fuller longer. So that's another perk. Not to mention the fact that we talked about blood sugar earlier. By adding even a high fiber diet to something that's sweet, it's going to slow down that sugar from hitting our bloodstream, whether that's direct sugar or sugar from pasta. And if that sugar is slowed down from hitting our bloodstream, it's not going to spike. Now, we've all kind of maybe had a day where we didn't eat all afternoon and then we came home, had a big old bowl of pasta or something like that. What happens 45 minutes later? You're ready for a nap. You're crashing. 45 minutes, an hour later, you're crashing. Why? Blood sugar spike. And so there goes the insulin police. We're not going to get into that in this video. And it gets into all kinds of blood sugar issues. But a high fiber diet, or adding fiber at least to that meal, is going to help slow down that sugar from hitting your bloodstream. And that means less likely to spike, less likely to crash. So that's another immediate reason to add high fiber to our diet. So, how much of this do we really need? Okay, that's a great question. Now, assuming most of my audience is under the age of 50, guys, we only need 38 grams of this stuff every single day. And our mashed potatoes are 9 of them. So, One serving of today's recipe takes care of 24% of our needs. Ladies, all you need is 25 grams. That's our recipe. That's 36% of your daily requirement. Now, for those who are over 51, guys, that number comes down to 30 grams a day, and then women, it comes down to 21 grams a day. So as you get older, it kind of gets a little easier on you. But again, it just goes to show it's really not that much, and you'll see this serving size, this one serving size of these potatoes, they're not a huge chunk, but they're good, and as you can see, it takes care of, hey, almost 25% of our needs. One serving, can't go wrong with that. So, to recap, where are we going to find this fiber? I know we talked about sources earlier, but where are we going to really find it? We're going to find fiber in our whole grain products. That means the brown rice, for those of us who like this stuff, okay? I'm not a big brown rice fan. I'll get my fiber elsewhere, but brown rice has fiber in it. Whole wheat bread has fiber in it, okay? But if you go to get whole wheat bread, read the nutritional facts label, because just because the bread is brown and it says it's made with whole wheat, I've learned from my own experience that it's not always all that jacked up in fiber. Then the Wonder Bread, which we all loved as kids, that good old white bread, not much difference in fiber with some whole wheat brands. So if you're going to go out and really go out and buy whole wheat bread, look for that on the nutritional facts label on the product. That's going to help out. In addition to whole grain products, you're looking at fruits. Preferably fruit with the skin on is always nice for those fruits that we could eat the skin. Vegetables. Vegetables, they're a great source of high fiber as well. I mean, especially your green vegetables. Well, if you've ever eaten green vegetables like your lettuce, well, the next day you go to the bathroom and sometimes you could tell you had lettuce the day before because it doesn't break down. There's your fiber. Okay? In addition to that, of course, we know about beans, which we're making today, peas, somewhat, and other legumes. Okay? So if that's your thing, go for it. Now, for those of us who want to snack on something that's high in fiber, you've got nuts, you've got seeds. These are also great sources of high fiber. And if you haven't already, subscribe down below and go to myplatemylife.com and sign up for the newsletter and stay inside the loop. Because this channel, I'm all about helping you eat healthy and make it taste good and be fun. So I'm going to show you how to eat right, but eat good, if that makes sense. And the sources of high fiber sources will be added to the diet, and we're going to make this work for you. Now, you might say, well, what about those commercials for like Metamucil or FiberCon? Sure, no offense, but if you're one of those old people that they seem to display in these commercials, go for it. No, in all seriousness, the only difference, the only reason why I prefer fiber from natural sources like nuts, seeds, vegetables, fruits, things like that, the reason for that is because, don't get me wrong, Metamucil, FiberCom, those are strictly fiber. And for the need of meeting your fiber requirement, yeah, you can use that. You certainly can. But natural sources have one benefit, because natural sources come with additional vitamins and minerals that are part of the source that fiber came from. So by eating natural sources of fiber, you'll be getting additional vitamins, additional minerals that FiberCon or Metamucil simply will not. So if you need to use those sources, that's fine, but let's try to stick with all natural. All right, that kind of wraps up our little talk about fiber. Now let's get back in the kitchen. First thing I want to do is I want to add the beans because I want to get these mushed up a bit. There we go. Add the potatoes a little bit at a time. All right. About time we start making a mess. It wouldn't be cooking if we didn't make a mess. There we go. All right, we're just about done. When you make this, whip it as long as you want. Depends on how creamy or chunky you want your mashed potatoes. All right, that works for me. Time to serve them up. Cut. And there you have it. High fiber mashed potatoes. This one serving is only going to cost you 200 calories, 9 grams of fiber, 11 grams of protein, and has over 1100 milligrams of potassium. So don't be afraid to salt and pepper to taste. Add a little butter if you like. I did not add any milk to this whatsoever. However, if you want to go ahead and make this a little creamier with some milk or water, more than welcome to do that. So enjoy yourself a plate of high fiber mashed potatoes, and when you're all done, you've got more than where that came from. So if you haven't already, subscribe below, leave your questions or comments. I'll be happy to address them, and go to myplaymylife.com for the recipe. Until next time, what's on your plate?